The long odyssey of Meyer Lansky is over, a flight that took the reputed financial wizard of the underworld from Israel to the one place he didn't want to go. Bruce Hall reports from Miami.
The 71-year-old Lansky was taken into custody early this morning in Miami after being denied asylum in 6 countries. He hopscotched around the world for 2 days after being kicked out of Israel. During the trip, he reportedly offered $1 million to any country that would take him. But he found no takers when the plane made stops in Switzerland, Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, Bolivia, Peru, and Panama. He fled the United States 2 years ago to avoid charges of income tax evasion and interstate racketeering. Lansky was held on $650,000 bond, but only 9 hours after arriving, he posted bond and was released. He was ordered to remain in the Miami area. Lansky's attorney said he was not going anywhere. He described Lansky as a sick man with no place to go. Bruce Hall, CBS News, Miami.
Resorts International, the Atlantic City Casino, got some bad news today. State Attorney General John Degnan came out against giving Resorts its permanent license. It's been operating these last 6 months with a temporary license. Today, the Gaming Enforcement Division reported links between Resorts and what the division called disreputable persons and organizations. Mike Power reports.
Resorts Casino in Atlantic City is not what the Attorney General said he's upset about. It's how Resorts established its casino in the Bahamas 11 years ago.
Well, they center basically upon a couple of areas. One is the kind of personnel that Resorts has had in its employment in the operation of its casino in the Bahamas. Frankly, they're a disreputable character at best. In addition to that, there's an absence of any operating controls.
Specifically, Attorney General Degnan said Resorts borrowed $24 million from undesirable characters, including associates of Meyer Lansky, the reputed financial wizard of the Mafia. Degnan said Resorts also made payments to politicians in the Bahamas and didn't record the money in the company's books. Later today, Resorts International said the payments were legal political contributions. The company also said its so-called link to underworld characters was explained to the state a year ago. And Resorts International President I.G. Davis said it's not really a link at all.
There are a myriad of people that we've dealt with over the course of our corporate history, thousands and thousands of people. The people they've selected for criticism are people who have had some investigation or some scrape with the law. But in most cases, these
has that proof. Before today's accusations, Resorts' next scheduled appearance before state authorities was January. That's when it's supposed to begin arguing its case for a permanent casino license. But now Resorts says it would like to begin those hearings immediately and use them to clear its name. In Atlantic City, I'm Mike Power.
After that critical report was released today, Resorts stock dropped almost $5 on the American Stock Exchange, and trading in it.
Good evening. This was the week Resorts International's luck ran out, at least temporarily. The State Attorney General came out against giving Resorts its permanent casino license. As a result, Resorts stock dropped, its stockholders filed a suit, and the state's first and only legal casino faced an uncertain future. The events began on Monday with the Attorney General's charges.
They center basically upon a couple of areas. One is the kind of personnel that Resorts has had in its employment in the operation of its casino in the Bahamas. Frankly, they're a disreputable character at best. In addition to that, there's an absence of any operating controls.
Specifically, Attorney General Degnan said Resorts borrowed $24 million from undesirable characters, including associates of Meyer Lansky, the reputed financial wizard of the Mafia. Degnan said Resorts also made payments to politicians in the Bahamas and didn't record the money in the company's books. Later today, Resorts International said the payments were legal political contributions. The company also said its so-called link to underworld characters was explained to the state a year ago. But the Division of Gaming Enforcement, the state's casino investigating arm, apparently doesn't see it that way. It says Resorts must now prove, by clear and convincing evidence, that it's above suspicion. But it'll be the Casino Control Commission that decides if Resorts has that proof.
As far as I'm concerned, that's merely a report. It's an allegation. The commission is bound by the record. I'm prepared to reserve any decision that I have on the basis of the testimony as testified to before the Casino Control Commission. We're bound by the record before us, not by any reports that are submitted to us.
Resorts President Jack Davis was at the meeting. Yesterday, Davis said he wants the commission's hearing on the permanent casino license moved up so Resorts can clear its name. Today, Lord I agreed to advance the hearing a week from January 15th to January 8th. Davis said that's fine. But meanwhile, Davis said Resorts is pondering whether to stop construction at its hotel and casino until its future is resolved. About 150 people are employed on the Resorts job.
Here to discuss Resorts problems with us is Dale Mezzacappa, State House reporter for the Bergen Record. Also here is John McGowan, who writes on state government for the Gannett newspapers. Dale, is it possible that with all the money invested, the jobs at stake, the tax revenues that could possibly be lost, is it possible that they won't give Resorts a permanent license?
Yes, it's very possible that they will not get a permanent license, that Resorts won't. I should say, however, that the law is set up in such a way that allows the casino to stay open. The state will essentially take it over. It will be run by a conservator or a trustee. But I think as far as Resorts goes, if you look at the situation that the commission is in, you have New Jersey with a reputation of organized crime and so forth. Everybody said, oh, this was going to happen with Atlantic City. You have the state attorney general saying, no, they shouldn't get a license. The commission is in a very difficult situation if they go against the recommendation of the state's attorney general.
If they do, in fact, refuse to recommend a permanent license for Resorts, what's that going to do to other corporations who are now thinking of coming in?
It will probably scare many of them off, and it will also scare off investment money. This report, in addition to attacking Resorts, inferentially attacked banks like the Bank of Commerce in New York for not providing information to the department. If I were a bank, I'd be a little afraid to invest money for fear of getting hurt by mistake.
What do you think Bally is going to do? Bally has had a reputation that has been in question in the past.
Bally was, in fact, I think, mentioned at one point in the report. I think.
Could you tell us in what context?
I'm not.
I can. The report complained that Dino Cellini, an associate of Meyer Lansky, had some connection with the Resorts Hotel. When you look for the connection, it was that Dino was collecting money from Bally to sell Resort slot machines.
It's a very neat little cozy situation,
well,
possibly.
And if the Attorney General's office thinks Resorts is so bad for accepting this man as an agent of another company, what does he think about the company that paid him?
In an interview earlier this week, Mr. Weinberger, who was one of the principals of Bally in Atlantic City, said he wasn't terribly worried. But of course, I think he almost has to say that. The Bally is planning to go ahead. Just this week, they got another go-ahead in terms of constructing new facilities and so forth. So it'd be interesting to see what they do. I guess they really haven't decided on their plan of attack yet.
Resorts has been losing money over the past month. They issued their report, and there was $100,000 a day less than had been previously. The take was $100,000.
They're not making as much money. They're still making money, but they're not making as much.
The fact is, though, it seems to me, are they anywhere near recouping their investment?
Well, their investment totaled somewhere between $40 and $60 million, depending on whose figures you're looking at. Their profit, with quotes around it, has been about $119 million since May 30th, May 29th. Somewhere in there, they must be close to recouping. Earlier, Dale said a state conservator takes over the casino. That is only until the casino is sold to somebody else. During that time, Resorts can make a reasonable profit, and they get their money back, or whatever the casino sells for. They don't stand to lose financially on this deal at all.
What's your feeling, Dale, about the possibility, the question that this then raises for all kinds of gambling operations? This was the great big hope for revitalizing Atlantic City.
Well, I think that that gambling will probably continue. There are a lot of companies who probably would not have to fear an investigation, and that Atlantic City's future is still key to legalize gambling. And I don't think this will necessarily end that. Certainly can. I mean, the governor is very committed to revitalize Atlantic City through gambling. I think John Degnan said that he thinks that this will attract honest investors and put off dishonest ones, and that's what the state wants anyway.
The New York Times reported today that the Division of Gaming Enforcement will recommend that casino licenses be denied to Caesars World and Bally Manufacturing Corporation unless the firms can refute the charges they once had links to organized crime. This comes on the heels of the Gaming Enforcement Division's recommendation last week that Resorts International be denied a permanent casino license for the same reason. The division listed 2 men who had ties to resorts as being associates of Meyer Lansky, the reputed mafia money man. And the Times says those same men have been found to have had links with Caesars World and Bally. Meanwhile, Resorts International has brought in a big legal gun to defend its casino license. Jersey City lawyer Raymond Brown, the man who successfully defended Mario Discalovich in the Dr. X murder case.
Down for a federal job. And Governor Byrne restated his tough stance on casino development in Atlantic City. The governor, in his last press conference of the year, talked about Resorts International.
And I'm certainly not going to take a position on any individual case. I've taken a position and stated it pretty clearly, I think, in answer to the question on overall policy. We're going to have clean casinos in Atlantic City. We're going to have no casinos at all.
With the new year, Resorts may be holding its breath, waiting for the Casino Control Commission to decide on its permanent license. John, the governor said that he was disappointed that Atlantic City officials are supporting Resorts' permanent license. Can we have clean casinos? Is that possible?
Well, clean is relative. I think it's possible for them to operate a clean casino situation down there in comparison to other casinos.
But are we saying that we accept the fact that there's going to be a little funny business going on in any large gambling operation? And that's inevitable?
You're starting out with the fact that people are going down there and going to lose money, which, you know, the deck is stacked against them to begin with, and that's accepted. You can keep people, I think, from walking away with the chips and skimming money off the top, and that sort of thing should be able to be possible.
John, what do you think?
Well, there's going to be a little funny business in any kind of a human venture. I don't know that the indictment that's been presented against Resorts International is the sort of thing that blows you out of your chair. I mean, there have been some sloppy bookkeeping and some money's been lost. Had ties with disreputable people in the past. But if you were operating in the Bahamas, as Resorts was, it'd be very difficult to run an operation down there without rubbing elbows with somebody who rubbed elbows with Meyer Lansky.
Neither one of you are muckraking today, I can tell.
But nonetheless, there's enough on the record, I think, to deny the permit.
You believe there is enough?
Sure, if that's what the Commission wants to do, if they think it's fair and proper.
I would think the Commission would have a difficult time giving him a permanent license on the basis they'd have to be in a position of challenging the Attorney General. They'd have to be in a position of waiving the kind of thing that these casino enforcers around the country look for. There's a lot of old raking over of old things, and I suppose the most damning thing in the report is simply that Resorts was warned of some of these things 7 or 8 years ago. For instance, their enforcement system down on the floor had some holes poked in it 7 or 8 years ago, and they still continue to operate that way. At least that's what the Attorney General's report says. And you would think, regardless of whether the criticisms made 7 years ago were right, they would have followed them to look clean, because they've got a lot of money at stake.
What do you think is going to happen? There has been talk that the state would take over Resorts until some other disposition of the business could be found. That seems to me untenable. I can't imagine the state doing that.
I think they'd have to.
Either take it. I'm not quite sure how the law works. They would take it over and put it in the hands of a receiver. I mean, you can do that with any company.
Well, they put it in the hands of a conservator,
right,
who would run it in the interim with giving a fair rate of return to Resorts. Nobody has defined what that return would be. And ultimately, the state would then decide to sell it to someone who could qualify for a permanent license. I would imagine they could.
Briefly, do you think that that's going to scare off any future casino developers?
No, I don't, because as Resorts has proved, you got to get a license to operate a casino in Atlantic City. It's a license to mine gold.
Yeah, it's worth so much money that it would attract, I don't know, A&P or somebody.
They're willing to gamble on gambling.
Sure.
Right. Okay.
And they've already, they may even be down one major competitor when they start.
That's true. Well, thank you very much. And we'll be watching all these stories in the year ahead. We'll keep trying to get new perspectives on This Week in New Jersey. Thank you both for joining us. John McLaughlin of the New York Daily News, John Colasar of the Trenton Times. Thank you.
Governor Brendan Byrne says there's some uncertainty in the gambling industry because of pending charges against Resorts International. But the governor says he doesn't think that's affected the industry's interest in Atlantic City. The governor made his remarks in Atlantic City today on the eve of hearings on the status of Resorts International. The Casino Control Commission is conducting those hearings on whether or not Resorts should be granted a permanent license to operate its casino. Resorts' gaming tables have been open since May on a temporary license. The betting is that the casino itself will stay, but whether Resorts will keep running it is not a sure thing. Steve Taylor reports.
To a lot of people, the whole future of Atlantic City is riding on the commission hearings. Some of them say if Resorts gets its permanent license over the opposition of Attorney General John Degnan, then the world will decide New Jersey isn't serious about keeping out organized crime, and honest casino operators will stay away. Other people say if Resorts does not get the permanent license after spending millions of dollars in Atlantic City, then all casino investors will stay away, and the well of gambling money the city needs so much will dry up. The casino has been operating on a temporary license because Resorts wanted to get started last spring, and the state's investigation of the firm was taking longer than expected. A month ago, the results of that probe were released. According to Attorney General Degnan, the company has been guilty of questionable practices and has accepted big loans from disreputable people, including some associates of alleged mafia money man Meyer Lansky. Resorts President Jack Davis answered that the investigation didn't uncover anything that wasn't explained long ago. The hearings will begin in Atlantic City at 10 tomorrow morning. They should go on several weeks, but will probably be finished by the time Resorts' temporary license expires on February 26th. If the commission members vote against Resorts, then they'll have to appoint somebody else to run the casino. That person, called a conservator, would also have to sell the operation and then give the money to Resorts. Commission Chairman Joseph Lordi has said that the casino's 3 state-appointed trustees would be logical candidates for conservator. The 3, former State Supreme Court Justice John Francis, former State Treasurer William Marfuji, and retired businessman Leonard Johnson, have control of the stock of Resorts Hotel and Casino under the temporary license. As it stands now, their authority will end on February 26th. There's one more thing. If Resorts loses, it probably will challenge the decision. And if that happens, the conservator will have to run the casino without selling it until the case works its way through the courts. This is Steve Taylor.
Another day of hearings in Atlantic City on whether Resorts International should get a permanent casino license, and again the Cellini brothers came up for discussion. Edward Cellini, once the manager of Resorts Casino in the Bahamas, and Dino Cellini, said by authorities to be a close associate of mafia moneyman Meyer Lansky. Today, it came out that Dino collected $28,000 in a so-called commission when he arranged the sale of slot machines to the Bahamas casino back in 1968. Resorts President Jack Davis testified today he only learned of that payment to Dino recently, and Davis also says he wouldn't know Dino if he tripped over him.
Paul, did Resorts International pay an underworld figure commission money when it bought slot machines for its Paradise Island casino? That question is one of the 17 objections against Resorts that could mean no permanent license for the casino. In the 25th day of hearings, the head of Resorts Security Division, a former Federal Justice Department attorney, testified that Resorts did not pay any commission on slot machines to Dino Cellini, an underworld figure and a reported associate of Meyer Lansky. Meanwhile, State Attorney General John Degnan, whose office had originally brought the charges against Resorts, said yesterday that denying Resorts a permanent license would, quote, encourage good, clean operators to come to Atlantic City. Caesars World Board Chairman Clifford Perlman has come to an agreement with the Securities and Exchange Commission on charges he violated federal security laws. Caesars World is the principal owner of Atlantic City's second casino, the Boardwalk Regency Hotel. The SEC investigation was discussed during Caesars' temporary casino license hearing in May. The SEC had been investigating charges that Perlman may have had a conflict of interest between Caesars and some of his personal business ventures, which investigators say may have been linked to reputed underworld boss Meyer Lansky. The agreement was a consent decree, which means the SEC drops further investigation if Perlman and Caesars World promise to make sure potential conflicts don't happen in the future.
Resorts International was the first of the gambling cartels to be licensed in New Jersey, and it had a rough time of it because, among other reasons, it had once employed one Eddie Cellini. Eddie is the brother of Dino Cellini, whom the state contends was a lieutenant of Meyer Lansky, the crime boss who specializes in gambling.
But Resorts got his license because, after all, who is his brother's keeper? But now Dino Cellini's old employer, the Bally Corporation, has come up with a temporary license of its own. Dino no longer works there, of course, and neither will Bally chairman William O'Donnell. O'Donnell has agreed to resign because of old contacts with organized crime, including Jerry Katina, the most successful gangster New Jersey has ever produced. O'Donnell follows in the grand tradition of Clifford Perlman, chairman of Caesar's World, another Jersey licensee. Because he had a Lansky connection, Perlman had to promise to have nothing to do with Caesar's operation in Atlantic City. Bally has never been able to get a license in Nevada. And a few years back, when it tried to open up shop in New Zealand, the word from down under was, get lost. The law creating legalized gambling and the regulations controlling it contain page after page detailing what it takes to qualify for a license. Maybe it's about time somebody wrote a couple of paragraphs explaining what it is you need to do to get yourself disqualified. I'm John McLaughlin.
Good evening. Caesar's World, the owner of Atlantic City's Boardwalk Regency Casino, have some explaining to do, at least in the eyes of Attorney General John Degnan. Degnan's office issued a lengthy report today calling for a full investigation into Caesar's alleged organized crime connections before its New Jersey property gets a permanent casino license. Kent Menahan has more on the story.
The report, which follows a 17-month investigation of some of Caesar's top officials and their business dealings, was delivered to the State Casino Control Commission early this morning. The Boardwalk Regency was granted a temporary license last May. In December, the Commission granted a 3-month extension to allow the Attorney General's Division of Gaming Enforcement to complete its investigation for the granting of a permanent license. Today's report lists numerous alleged ties between Caesars and organized crime that it says should be explored by the Casino Control Commission. For example, Caesars board chairman Clifford Perlman's alleged association with underworld boss Meyer Lansky, and Vice President of Caesars Operation Mark Geller's alleged unethical dealings as an attorney. Attorney General John Degnan says the report findings are serious enough to warrant investigation.
The applicant, Boardwalk Regency in this case, has an affirmative obligation to show to the Commission that it has the character and reputation for honesty to entitle it to a license.
Degnan added that if Caesars does finally qualify for a permanent license, it should be granted only under certain conditions, which will be determined later. Caesars President William McElray reacted confidently to today's report, saying the corporation would be able to respond satisfactorily to the reported concerns. The Casino Control Commission will hear testimony probably in February from Caesars attorneys and the Attorney General's office before making a final decision. I'm Kent Menahan.
And Resorts International has agreed to set up an internal auditing committee as a condition for renewing its operating license. The order came from the state's Gaming Enforcement Division, which has been checking into Resorts' internal credit procedures. The Casino Control Commission was expected to take up Resorts' license renewal sometime today. Tomorrow, the Casino Control Commission will begin to decide whether the Boardwalk Regency in Atlantic City should be granted a permanent casino license. The Regency is owned by Caesar's World of Las Vegas, and as Steve Taylor reports, New Jersey investigators have some complaints about past dealings by the parent company.
Atlantic City's second gambling palace opened on June 26, 1979, having received a temporary license from the Casino Control Commission. Hearings on a permanent license were supposed to have started last February, but Abscam and then the fight to set up a new full-time commission delayed things. Now the fighting's over, and 4 new commissioners have joined Chairman Joseph Lordi, and tomorrow morning, in this room being prepared in Trenton, the commission will begin hearings on a permanent license for the Boardwalk Regency. One condition of the Regency's temporary license was that Clifford Perlman, chairman of the board of Caesar's World, have nothing to do with the Atlantic City operation. The state's Division of Gaming Enforcement was investigating Perlman, and that investigation is now complete. According to the division's report, Perlman and Caesars had business dealings with associates of reputed mobster Meyer Lansky. The report also says one Perlman deal involved a contractor once convicted of conspiracy in the Jimmy Hoffa Teamsters pension fund scandals. There are other charges against Caesars in the report, some involving business deals with ex-convicts. But the investigators didn't say the Boardwalk Regency shouldn't be licensed. Instead, the report recommends that the commissioners impose some sort of restrictions on the company if it gets the casino license. One restriction might be that Perlman be kept out of the Atlantic City operation permanently. The hearings here probably will take from 4 to 6 weeks. The state will lay out its charges in detail. Caesar's lawyers will try to refute the allegations, and then the commissioners will decide. In Trenton, I'm Steve Taylor.
State's Division of Gaming Enforcement said today the chairman of the board of Caesars World should not be granted a New Jersey casino license. That statement came as the Casino Control Commission opened hearings into a permanent casino license for Caesars Boardwalk Regency in Atlantic City. And at the same hearing, the Division of Gaming Enforcement also said the casino company should not be licensed unless it ends some questionable business ties. Steve Taylor reports.
Much of the first day's testimony concerned Florida real estate deals between Caesars chairman Clifford Perlman, his company, and a man named Alvin Malnick. The commissioners heard allegations that Malnick has ties to reputed mobster Meyer Lansky. Michael Cole of the State Division of Gaming Enforcement said as long as the association with Malnick continues, Caesars Boardwalk Regency shouldn't be licensed. And Cole said that Clifford Perlman's continued dealings with Malnick make him unqualified to run a New Jersey casino.
The division, on its review of the facts, does not consider one Clifford Perlman suitable for license.
Those were stronger recommendations than the division had made earlier, and Caesars lawyer William Glendon was on his feet to object. Cole replied that the division always opposed the Malnick connection. When Glendon addressed the commissioners, he defended Perlman's character, saying it was above reproach, and he insisted that the Malnick deals had no effect on the operations of either the Boardwalk Regency Casino or Caesars World.
It's true that Caesars has had 2 transactions with a man of questionable reputation. But it's not true, as I've said, that he has any interest in any of these companies or he has any influence over the operations of these companies.
These hearings will take at least 4 weeks and maybe 6 before the commissioners decide whether to license the Boardwalk Regency and what to do about Clifford Perlman. Commissioner Madeline McQuinney wasn't here today. When she was appointed, she said she wouldn't be available until September 10th, tomorrow. She says she can catch up by reading transcripts of today's sessions, and none of the lawyers here objected. In Trenton, I'm Steve Taylor.
Caesars Boardwalk Regency Casino is asking for a permanent state license at hearings in Trenton, but state investigators are trying to persuade the commission to deny that license. Steve Taylor reports.
2 names are being mentioned a lot at these hearings, names of men who probably won't be testifying. They are Alvin Malnick and Samuel Cohen. They're Florida residents, and they and Caesars World are co-owners of some Florida real estate. Various investigators and journalists have alleged that Malnick and Cohen have ties to reputed mobster Meyer Lansky. Michael Cole of the Division of Gaming Enforcement spent most of the day cross-examining Caesars president William McElnay. Cole asked detailed questions about Caesars' dealings with Malnick and Cohen over several years. Typical was this exchange, as McElnay described a Caesars board meeting in the early 1970s, where a board member talked about Malnick's questionable reputation.
There were allusions to the fact that he had known and had some business dealings with Meyer Lansky.
Was Mr. Cohen discussed, Mr. Samuel Cohen discussed at that second meeting?
Yes, he was discussed as being Malnick's partner in this transaction.
But McElnay said Malnick and Cohen denied any ties to Lansky. From the commissioner's point of view, the rumor of a Lansky connection may be enough because casino licensees are supposed to avoid people with bad reputations, and Caesars World wants a casino license. There will be no hearings tomorrow or Friday because of the Jewish holidays, but on Monday the sessions will resume 5 days a week for at least 3 more weeks. In Trenton, I'm Steve Taylor.
Earl, the owner of the Boardwalk Regency Casino in Atlantic City, today presented character witnesses to the Casino Control Commission. As hearings entered their 2nd week in Trenton, Caesars tried to convince the commissioners that the company and its chairman, Clifford Perlman, should get permanent New Jersey casino licenses. Steve Taylor was there for the testimony.
From a banking point of view, do you have an opinion of Caesars World?
Yes.
And what is that opinion?
It's very high. We think very well of the firm.
Do you know Clifford Perlman?
Yes, I do.
Do you have an opinion as to his character and integrity?
I think it's the highest level.
John Vandersea said his bank has loaned Caesars World $77 million over the last 6 years, and all of it has been repaid. Vandersea was one of several witnesses Caesars called to try to establish its good character in the eyes of the 5 casino commissioners. But as in hearings last week, the commissioners were more interested in Caesars' dealings with Samuel Cohen and Alvin Malnick, Florida men who are alleged associates of reputed mobster Meyer Lansky. A lot of today's questioning went like this.
Did you, in assessing the reputation of Mr. Malnick during the periods of negotiation, take into consideration the reputation of Meyer Lansky and the alleged association of Mr. Malnick with Mr. Lansky?
I didn't focus on the Meyer Lansky aspect of it, Mr. Chairman, because there was a categorical denial on the part of Malnick that he had never met Meyer Lansky. And we firmly believe that that was the case.
Here's how the hearings shape up for the rest of the week. Caesars will call more character witnesses, and on Wednesday, the commissioners want to talk about some alleged check-cashing violations at the Boardwalk Regency. And perhaps late tomorrow, maybe Wednesday, Caesars chairman Clifford Perlman will take the stand. He's the man who arranged the questionable business deals which lie at the heart of these hearings. In Trenton, I'm Steve Taylor.
The former head of the Nevada Gaming Control Board told the Casino Control Commission today that he warned Caesars World President Clifford Perlman not to make any business deals with a suspected mob figure. Philip Hanifin's testimony came on the 4th day of hearings on whether to grant Caesars Boardwalk Regency a permanent casino license. Hanifin told the commissioners Perlman was a partner in a country club with an associate of Meyer Lansky.
Perlman, that Alvin Malnick was a person who had some reputational problems, primarily as the result of certain books and newspaper articles written by a man named Messick. That those allegations were that Malnick was a close associate of a man known as Meyer Lansky. Lansky, in turn, was reputed or alleged to be a prime figure within the organized crime group in the United States.
The New Jersey Attorney General's office has recommended that Caesars be denied its permanent license because of Perlman's alleged underworld ties. Investigative reporter and organized crime expert Hank Messick thinks he has some information the state's Casino Control Commission ought to have. That information concerns Clifford Perlman, the top man at Caesars, and Alvin Malnick, a Miami attorney Perlman has done business with. Malnick has denied that he knows reputed underworld figure Meyer Lansky. But Messick says he has information that Malnick actually worked for Lansky. And Messick thinks the Casino Control Commissioners ought to have that information as they hear the case for Caesars Boardwalk Regency Casino in Atlantic City. Recently, reporter John McLaughlin talked with Messick.
Despite all the newspaper allegations about Meyer Lansky, all the reports about Lansky and books, and all this stuff that you say is on the record about Alvin Malnick, it still seems to me difficult to find a smoking gun to prove a precise tie between Malnick and Lansky. Now, is there anything on the record anywhere to prove that those two people are Confederates and associates?
Well, I can give you one example from a sworn statement by Seymour Alder. It was a deposition taken from Mr. Alder at his residence in Coconut Grove, Florida at 7:10 p.m. on January the 29th, 1974, relative to the income tax liability of C.G. Rebozo, BB, and so forth. So this was taken by the IRS. Way over here somewhere they asked him the question. They asked Alder. Now, Alder at that time had been working for Huntington Hartford in the Bahamas. Huntington Hartford had owned Hog Island, which later became Paradise Island, and he was trying to get a permission for a gambling casino there. And because he wasn't playing ball with the mob, they wouldn't give him the permission. And so he had hired, and this is a matter of record, he had hired Alvin Malnick to help him get permission to do what was necessary. So Mr. Alder was also working for him. So they asked for Huntington Hartford the question, do you know Meyer Lansky? He says, no. Have you ever met him? Once. When? Back in the period when we were trying to get a casino license for the Bahamas. Was he interested in purchasing any interest in Paradise Island? He didn't say so to me, no. What did he say to you, and in what connection did you meet him? Well, I think I'd better perhaps tell you the circumstances involving it. A man came over to me at the Ocean Club. I wouldn't have no idea of the dates at this point, and he said he understood we were desirous of getting a casino license. I said, yes, we were. He said he thought he could get one for us. Would I be interested? I said, yes, of course. I would be interested. But to be honest with him, I said, this particular gentleman was quite young in appearance to begin with, and I said, I've run into a lot of people that made the same claim, and it turned out to be nonsense. And I wouldn't be really interested unless he could further satisfy me that what he said was true. He could have. He said, would I be willing to come to Miami? I said, I don't particularly want to go to Miami, only if he could convince me that whoever I'm talking to I would feel could get us a gambling license. He said, all right, he'll get back to me. And he got back to me within 2 hours. And he said, be on the early morning plane to Miami. I think it was an 8 a.m. flight. I sort of balked. I didn't like the idea of getting up that early. I said, are you sure? He said, you will be more than satisfied that the person you meet would be able to get you a gambling casino license. And I said, all right. I took the 8 o'clock flight. The man that had been talking to me in Paradise Island was Al Malnick, by the way. He met me at the airport and drove me to a restaurant in Miami Beach called Woofy's. He walked me to a table, and there was a gentleman sitting there. I was introduced to him. What's his name? Meyer Lansky. To Meyer Lansky. I knew he was Meyer Lansky. I sort of recognized from the pictures in the papers that he was the same person. The young man said, that's Malnick, Mr. Lansky, this gentleman is part of Paradise Island, and he's interested in getting a gambling casino license. Mr. Lansky looked at me and said, are you? And I said, I hope. I was nervous. I said, I hope I'm not insulting anyone, but to be perfectly honest, I don't think Mr. Hartford or his lawyers would allow any sort of negotiations with you in any manner or form. And I hope you're not taking it personally, but I think I'll have to stand on that. It didn't bother him at all. He said, all right, all right. He went out. Malnick drove me back to the airport, and I went back to Paradise Island, and I think I told it to Hartford right away. So there you have this sworn testimony that this guy wanting a casino license was taken by Alder was taken by Malnick to see Meyer Lansky as the man who could get it for him. And of course he could.
This is the same Seymour Walter, I presume, who was in the employ of Resorts International.
Later on, yes.
Both in the Bahamas.
After they got the Hartford couldn't get the license, but Paradise, the Marriott Carter Paint Company, which became Resorts International, did get it and built this huge casino on Paradise Island, and Seymour went to work for him.
Clifford Perlman of Caesars has said under oath that he didn't know at the time of his association with Malnick that Malnick was a reported confidant of Meyer Lansky.
Good evening. The Casino Control Commission has voted to give Bally's Park Place Casino a permanent license, but the commission denied a license to Bally's Chief Executive Officer, William O'Donnell, citing O'Donnell's alleged involvement with reputed organized crime figures. Mary Amoroso has the story.
The commission meeting was delayed an hour to give O'Donnell and his family time to make it through the snow from Atlantic City. But when they finally arrived in Trenton, they got some chilling news.
The Division of Gaming Enforcement has recommended that this commission find William O'Donnell unsuitable for qualification.
The commission cited O'Donnell's business relationships with Gerardo Cattina, a reputed underboss in the Vito Genovese crime family, and with Dino Cellini, a reputed associate of Meyer Lansky. Commission member Zeitz also raised the issue of a loan O'Donnell allegedly made to help pay for bribes in 1968 to Kentucky legislators. The commission also decided to get around the whole issue of licensing Bally Continental head Alexander Wilms of Belgium by waiving the licensing requirement. But it did decide to tie Wilms's hands so that neither he nor his family, who are principal stockholders in Bally, can exercise any influence over the company. The Division of Gaming Enforcement still has to decide whether it will contest or agree to that waiver. And finally, the commission made the big announcement that if O'Donnell divests himself of all stock and involvement in Bally, Bally can have a permanent license to operate a casino in Atlantic City. Afterwards, O'Donnell, who built Bally up from a bankrupt game company to a multi-million-dollar casino giant, had this to say.
Said I'm too old to cry, and it hurts too much to laugh.
It sounds like you are willing to accept the decision rendered today.
What else can I do?
And the Attorney General and the Division of Gaming Enforcement, which had opposed the licensing of both O'Donnell and Bally, said this.
I think that was a fair decision, and I think it represents a very major accomplishment for the Commission and for the Division to have sustained its objections to O'Donnell.
Bally's temporary casino permit expires at midnight on Monday, and Monday afternoon, both the Division of Gaming Enforcement and the Bally people will be back here to tell the Commission whether they can meet its conditions. In Trenton, I'm Mary Amorose.
The U.S. Supreme Court has refused to get involved in the Caesars World Casino license dispute. New Jersey barred one of Caesars' founders, Clifford Perlman, from involvement in an Atlantic City gaming hall, but the High Court found that that did not represent an important federal issue. The justices dismissed an appeal from a ruling that let the state refuse to allow Clifford Perlman to take part in the casino's operations. That was after a probe turned up allegations that he and his brother Stuart had organized crime connections. New Jersey's Casino Control Commission had found that neither Perlman met the character test of the State Casino Act because of associations with reputed mob financier Meyer Lansky. The agency ruled that unless the Perlmans severed all ties with Caesars World, the casino application would be denied. Okay.